Great. All right. So let's get started. I want to honor the time that everyone had who arrived on time for the 7:30 start. Here in Israel, those of you who are here, or those of you who know that we're just about ending Yom HaAtzmaut, and I wanted to dedicate this session to Yom HaAtzmaut, but also the introduction to Yom HaAtzmaut, the very important day of Yom HaZikaron. It's, I think, very profound, and I think we all can appreciate that in Israel, the day of Atzmaut, which usually translated as independence, is preceded by Yom HaZikaron, where we remember the tremendous sacrifices of those who gave their lives for Am Yisrael, in Eretz Yisrael as Medinat Yisrael. Their sense of responsibility to the destiny of Am Yisrael, to help to make this country, put this country together, to defend this country, to contribute to this country, is profound. And the sense of achrayut, of responsibility that they had and that they gave their lives for, is something that is important. It's incumbent on us as well to, first of all, be grateful for their sacrifice, to realize those of us who are here, we are here because of them. Those of us Jews all around the world are connected to Eretz Yisrael because of them. So the sense of atzmaut that we have, of independence, but atzmaut is more than independence. It's the sense of of selfhood of a certain type, a free and independent selfhood, a sense of presence of self. That all comes from, based on the tremendous sacrifices of our Kedoshim, our Chayalim and Chayalot, those who gave their lives for Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael. So I thought to dedicate our meditation tonight to their memory and to the meaning of Atzmaut, and thought for this to share a meditation, very traditional Kabbalistic meditation from it's first recorded in the late 13th century, though it's clearly much earlier than that. It's brought by Rav Yitzchak of Akko in his Me'irat Einayim. The Rav Yitzchak was, he lived in Akko, he was born in Akko, very important link in the chain of Kabbalah. He studied in the yeshiva that the Ramban, Nachmanides, Moshe ben Nachman, established in Akko when the Ramban made Aliyah in sometime around 1267 or so. And so the Ramban's Aliyah was very significant. The Ramban was basically running from Spain. He had won a disputation against a representative of the Franciscan and Dominican monks. He won the disputation. The King of Aragon, who was a friend of the Ramban's, supported him in this, but also advised him after he won that he should get out of town, since the Dominicans and the Franciscans would be chasing after him. And so the Ramban took this opportunity to make Aliyah, which of course was the whole desire of his life. He made Aliyah, and it was very successful, which was not an easy thing in those days. And he established a Beit HaKnesset in Yerushalayim, which has been recently rehabilitated at the so-called Churva. And he then returned to Akko and established a yeshiva that lasted for quite a long time. And Rabbi Yitzchak of Akko was one of the students there and a student of the Ramban. So he brings this meditation in his commentary on the Torah, Rabbi Yitzchak of Akko. And you have the text, you can find it in that chat section, the PDF that Meir loaded there. And let me just say, by the way, thank you, Meir Paltiel, for arranging all of this. Thanks to LiveNote for setting up this opportunity for us to learn together and meditate together around the planet Earth. All of the remote alumni of LiveNote, along with those who are coming for Tal Orot as well, our meditation society. So we have a text here. This is, I translated this, it's a pretty literal translation so that you get the flavor of what's going on here. And we're going to do this in two parts. Tonight, part one, and the next time, part two. What I'd like to do this right now is learn enough of this to get the sense of what's going on, how to do the meditation, and then do it. And then next time we'll learn some of the theory behind it that Rabbi Yitzchak goes on to explain later on, and do it again the next time. But for this session, it will be great if we basically learn the basic technique and are able to practice that technique. So let's begin at the top of this. Those of you who don't have access to the text, don't worry about it. I'll be reading everything and making it clear. Yes, Hashem. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, I, Yitzchak the youthful, son of Shmuel, may God protect him, of Akko, say that, whether for elite individuals or for the multitude, in other words, what he's going to say applies either for all of us, the multitude, or also for elite individuals, for Kabbalists who are deeply engaged in Jewish spirituality. But whether for elite individuals or for the multitude, whoever wants to know the secret of binding his soul to the supernal and adhering his thought in God the Supreme, called devekut, in other words, adherence of thought in God, in order to acquire through that constant thought, without interruption, the world to come. And that Hashem, blessed be He, be always with him in this world and the world to come. At all times, we have a sense of presence of God. Here's a meditation for that. That's what he's saying. If you wanted to accomplish this, two things: to know the secret of binding one's soul to the supernal. And this is a basic Kabbalistic principle. The notion is that soul, first of all, what's called soul, neshama, is, we would translate that today as consciousness, the full structure of consciousness. Okay, so binding the full structure of our consciousness to God, the supernal, which is for a Kabbalist to recognize that our consciousness is an emanation of divine consciousness at every moment. In other words, to recognize that binding that already exists between our consciousness and God's revelation of consciousness. That's the first goal or aim, let's call it the aim of this meditation. And also to have a sense, a constant adherence to God without interruption, have a constant sense of God's presence in the world, in your consciousness, in your life, that God be with you always in this world and the world to come, and wherever we are, do this. And now he describes the meditation. Let him place before the eyes of his intellect and thought the letters of the unique name, the name of God, Yud He Vav He. This is the four-letter tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God, Yud He Vav and He. I should actually write this out for those of you not familiar with it. I'm sure most of you are familiar, but let me just give you a thing of this. Hang on. Okay. I don't know if this reads backwards or forwards when I do this. Is that backwards? That's backwards, yeah? Is that reading backwards? Yes, I guess so. Hang on a second. I'll do this a different way.
Rabbi Meir, we could see it correctly.
You did? Okay, good.
Yeah.
For some reason in mine it showed backwards. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, here it is. Yud, He, Vav, and He. Okay, I put little dashes in between, you know why. So Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, the divine name. So he says, should place before the eyes of his intellect, or imagination is what he means, and thought the letters of the unique name, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, blessed be he, as if they're written before him in a book in Asherite script. In other words, the way you would normally see Hebrew. The normal script that we find in a Siddur, in a Chumash, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. This is the Tetragrammaton, the unique name of God. There are other names of God, but this is considered the most essential. He'll explain why, and we'll mention that in just a bit. And let each letter be large in his eyes without limit. Okay, so you start with Yud, Hey, and Vav, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, and then expand these letters in your mind without limit, as far as you can expand them, as high, as low, as far out to the right, far out to the left. Get those letters as large as you can expand them. Let each be large in his eyes without limit. What I mean to say, he says, is that when you place the letters of the unique name before your eyes, let the eyes of your intellect or imagination be upon them, and the thought of your intellect and your heart be on the infinite, Ein Sof, all as one, the vision and the thought both as one. That's a profound hint. What he's saying here is this is actually what's called in technical Kabbalistic terms a yichud, a unification. We're unifying two modes of consciousness in awareness of God. Okay. We have the unique name of God, the name by which God calls God's self in Torah, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. So that's a name with letters, and we expand that as much as possible in our imagination, in our minds. What we'll find as we do the exercise is that when we think that we rule over our imagination and can imagine anything we want, but in fact, it's not so simple to get all of those letters all at once imagined as large as you can imagine them, and to keep expanding them and keep expanding them, to embrace all of the universe, to embrace the world and the solar system and the universe and all universes, to get it as big as possible. It's not so simple. And yet this is not just an exercise of the imagination. He says we want to connect our heart to God the infinite, Ein Sof. In Kabbalistic terms, it's an important principle in Kabbalah. God in Kabbalah is Ein Sof, the infinite. Beyond all ideas, beyond all names, beyond all thought, not able to be grasped at all. God is the infinite. God reveals God's self, and that's God's self. God reveals God's self in creation and in the guidance of creation, what we call hashgacha, or divine care or providence. So God reveals God's self in creation and in guidance of creation in what our tradition calls God's name. The name of God is a revelation of God's activity. It's not God. And just like for each of us, we have a name. My name is Meir. I answer to that name. It's a social construction, right? It's a social convention that each of us has a name. You grow into your name, but we're not our name. Our name is what people call us, but to ourselves, in ourselves, we're beyond that name. Okay, we certainly don't need to refer to ourselves with that name. We are, in a certain sense, in ourselves nameless, but we allow ourselves to be called by the name that our parents called us and that people call us in the world. I'm Meir. So on God's own level, God is beyond all names, but God has revealed a name to us and God allows God's self to be called that name. And the most essential name of God is the the unique name, Shem HaMeforash, Shem Miyuchad, here he calls it, the Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God. Now that name is not just an arbitrary set of letters or a word. It itself has profound meaning. Essentially, it's different forms of the verb to be in Hebrew. Haya, hoveh, v'yiyeh. The all in an ingenious way woven together in the Yud Hey Vav and Hey. So it's a name that expresses God's eternal existence. Haya, hoveh, v'yiyeh. So it has meaning, and he's going to talk about that meaning a little later in the text. But that name is not God. It has kedusha, it has holiness, but it's not God. So that's what Yitzchak Gavako is saying here is that we'll use this name and imagine it stretched out as large as possible, encompassing the entire world, encompassing the entire universe, encompassing all of reality. He'll explain why in a bit. And even so, that doesn't begin to really connect with God's self, who is the infinite, Ein Sof. But it helps us stabilize our awareness of God, just like calling someone a name by their name gives us a sense of their presence. And when we talk to each other, we identify each other. You call someone on the phone, you say, hello, so-and-so. It's a way of identifying, connecting with a person and stabilizing our awareness of God in this case, but also recognizing that that name doesn't begin to express what God really is about, just like our name doesn't begin to express who we really are, okay? But it's a way of stabilizing that. So we have two modes of consciousness in play here in this meditation, which makes it's a beautiful meditation. It's called a yichud, a unification. Our imagination, our thought, in this case visual, it can also be auditory, I'll talk about that in a moment. Our imagination is imagining God, this name of God, to get a stable sense, while our heart consciousness, which is a deeper level of consciousness, a level in which we process the meaning of things, our heart consciousness is trying to connect with God's self, God the infinite. Okay? And again, we have a model for this. I mean, just, again, imagine yourself calling someone on the phone. You first identify, hello, is this so-and-so? And then you start talking, and you talk in a very spontaneous way, very aware that you're connected to this other person because you've established that by establishing that that's their name and you hear their voice, etc. So on a certain level, in a connection with our relation to God, we establish relationship with God through this name that focuses our attention, but then we really connect with our hearts, with God the infinite. Now, that's the meditation. And so essentially I'll just go over the description of it again. We imagine God's name, stretch it, start small, stretch it as much as possible, and getting it as far as you can. Do the best you can in stretching that name, but then connecting our hearts with God the infinite directly, with God's self. Let me take a break here for a second to catch things up. Meir, how are we doing? Are people coming into the, you can unmute yourself for a second. People are coming in.
Yeah, we've had some people come in over the last few minutes.
Good. So I'll kind of put this together so that everyone gets the description of the meditation. If you could raise your hand when it looks like the last person has come in, let's say the next 5 minutes. Just raise your hand so that I'll know to move ahead more quickly at that point. Okay. Thank you. And you can remove.
If I just so the people who came in the last few minutes, originally the message went out at 8 o'clock, and then there was a post in Israel and to Livnot alumni that it was 7:30. So we had two groups of people joining. One who came around 7:30, and the people who are joining now at 8 o'clock. I apologize for the confusion. It was inadvertent mistake. So we have just begun with the text, and Rav Meir will point out where we are.
Right. Okay, and those of you who are just tuning in, the text you can find in the chat section. It's also right up on front. Most it'll be up on front of your screen right now for most people. Okay. We're in the second paragraph of this text, where Rav Yitzchak of Akko, 13th century, is describing, Kabbalists of the 13th century, describing the meditation practice that we want to do. Take a moment with the indulgence of those who were on a little bit earlier, just to re-describe what the meditation is. It says this meditation practice, which is for devekut, for having a constant sense of the presence of God, involves, first of all, imagining with our imagination the Shem HaMiyuchad, the unique name of God, Baruch Hu, as if it's written in a book in Asherite script, which is the block printing that we're most familiar with in the Torah, Sefer Torah, in a Chumash, in a Sidur. It's the four-letter, the Tetragrammaton name of God, which looks like this. Okay, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Okay, and we imagine that with our, the eyes of our imagination, the eyes of our intellect, as he says it. And we get those letters, we start small, and I suggest starting small, and expand those letters as much as you can. He says that the letters be large in one's eyes without limit. So start small, expand them step by step by step. Imagine the letters expanding up and down and to the right and to the left. Get them, stretch them out as much as you can. What the goal is here, to have a sense that these letters are embracing all of reality. The world, the solar system, the universe, all universes, all of reality embraced in God's name. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. Now, when we do this, we're stretching out the name of God. So far, I've been describing it in 2 dimensions, but why stop with 2 dimensions? We're talking about a name of God that's embracing all of reality. So also front and back, so to speak. Have this name stretching out in block letters in all dimensions as much as you can. We're talking about letters, but frankly, don't be too literal about this. Stretch it as best you can. Okay. Have a sense that these letters, the goal here is to have a sense, an aim is that these letters are embracing all of reality, because they do. We'll see why. Okay. But we'll find that it's a struggle to do this. It's not so easy to rule over your imagination and make it do what you want it to do, particularly in this case. So allow yourself, play with it. You maybe stretch it, and then you kind of lose it. Start again, stretch. And maybe you'll lose it, but keep trying. But while you're doing this, he says, our goal is, yes, to make these letters as if they are without limit. You won't really be able to accomplish that in the imagination. But what you can do is have a connection of your heart to God, God's self, God the infinite, God Ein Sof. In Kabbalistic terms, God is Ein Sof, the infinite. So we connect our heart to God, the infinite, while our imagination is stretching these letters and sensing God's name, which is a revelation of God, the infinite. God's name embraces all of reality. So this is a meditation that engages 2 levels of consciousness, or 2 modes of consciousness, and brings them together. It's called a yichud, a unification. It's a very profound form of meditation, still very practiced in Kabbalistic circles to this day. So the question is, how do we have this connection? It's one thing to stretch the name of God as much as we can. How do we connect our hearts to God the infinite? What does that mean? We're connecting to the reality of God, God the infinite, but God the infinite is beyond all ideas, beyond all thought forms, certainly beyond all imagination. We can't grasp God the infinite with our minds. So what does he mean? Connect your heart to God the infinite, to Ein Sof, while your imagination is engaged with the name of God. So in Kabbalistic terms, one of the ways in which you can connect yourself to Ein Sof, to God the infinite, is to sense our own being, our own existence, and how it is a gift from God the infinite. The sense here, and I'm going to be putting together things that we've learned together in previous sessions here in the Live Note group, to have a sense that each of us finds ourselves here. We've done nothing to bring ourselves here. We do very little to keep ourselves here. But here we are, okay, a gift to ourselves completely. We are a gift. And we find ourselves, we are a gift to ourselves. It's effortless. We're doing nothing to make this happen, very little to keep it happening, just being very careful. Eating, drinking, breathing, watch where you walk, and keeping some social distance at the moment. And that's about all we need to do, and we're here. But we're not just here. We are really here. We are absolutely here. Each one of us is infinitely here. Not here forever in this form, maybe, but we are infinitely, absolutely here. And that, if you start to get a sense of that, is wilder than wild. This is what Torah is about. I mean, there are religions in the world, which we respect all religions. There are religions in the world which regard all of reality as an illusion. Okay? In Torah terms, reality is no illusion. That this existence that we have is real, and that's what's so amazing. And it's the hardest thing for consciousness to really grasp the real reality of things. To have, the hardest thing for consciousness is affirmation of existence. It's something about consciousness. Sartre talks about it in Being and Nothingness, and other phenomenologists talk about this. It's a nature of consciousness actually to negate things. It's part of the process of attention, to negate existence. As you try to grab something, you're also at the same time pushing it away, which is like what you do with your hand. It's try to grab something with our hand, but it's also at arm's length. Any idea that we grab with our minds, we also are essentially putting the real existence that idea is about at arm's length. So the hardest thing for us as consciousness is real, direct affirmation of being. Okay? The Rambam talks about this in Mor Nevuchim. Rabbeinu Bachya and Bakuda talks about this in Chovot Levavot. Many others talk about this. They give the example of the sun shining. Okay? On a sunny day, the one place you don't look is at the sun, says Rambam. It's just too much. It would blow you, it would blind your eyes to look directly at the sun. So Maimonides says, Rabbeinu Bachya and Bakuda says, it's that way with God, only more. God is hiding in plain sight, and were we to really sense the infinitude of God, it would blow our minds completely. So we look away. I mean, we look any place but. Lo yorani adam v'chai, it says in the Torah, God says to Moshe, no, a human being cannot see me and live. It would blow our minds. It's like looking right into the sun. So we look away, away, away. But we can have a sense of, sort of indirectly, a sense of the presence of God and what God is accomplishing here by realizing that we ourselves are here and we are effortlessly here. We've done nothing to bring ourselves here. We do very little to keep ourselves here. It's happening relatively effortlessly. And we're not just here, we are absolutely here. Or you could say we are infinitely here. And that is amazing. And that's what the Torah is about. And that's what Bereshit is about, Genesis, that we are really, really here. So how do we connect with God, the infinite, with our hearts? By appreciating in Hakarat Tov, in gratefulness, in gratitude, we're here. We accept, we receive our being. Yeah? So by having a sense, really receiving your being from God, you receive your consciousness at every moment from God. By receiving our being and knowing that we are really here, infinitely here, we begin to get on the wavelength, so to speak, of God Ein Sof, God the infinite. So this is what Rav Yitzchak Gavaka was saying. We're imagining the name of God in this meditation stretched as big as we can, Yud, Hey, and Vav, and Hey, in all dimensions, in all directions. Okay, imagine it three-dimensional if you can. If you can do more than 3 dimensions, great, because it is. But 3 dimensions. You might ask yourself the question in this meditation, if God's name is embracing all of reality, where am I in God's name? Okay, interesting question. God's name is in all dimensions, but while we're doing that, we have a sense with our heart consciousness, not with an idea, but with really directly feeling our presence, which we have done nothing to make happen, which is a gift, which we're receiving from God absolutely right now, absolutely, infinitely receiving it from God. And that puts us in to connection with God, the infinite. When we say infinitely here, we don't mean eternally here in this form. We will go through many other forms, okay? In the course of the journeys of our souls, Kabbalistic terms. But here we are really absolutely here, and that's amazing. So that's the meditation, sort of in a nutshell. A couple of other pointers in this. So we're imagining the name of God. What color do you want those letters to be? Be a little playful with this. The way that a Sefer Torah is written, it's black letters on a white background. That's actually very easy to imagine. So you can start with that. But you might find other colors more conducive. You can imagine that the name of God is shining white letters. You can imagine them as blue letters. Sometimes you can imagine them as any color, frankly, whatever is easiest for you. And you may find at different times when you do this meditation, which he suggests, by the way, do this, and it's a good meditation to do almost any time. You might find that at different times of the day or different times of your emotional soul, you choose different colors. That's fine. I have to say, the way I like to do this meditation is with letters that are transparent. And the reason is that if you're doing the meditation with letters that are, let's say, black on white, okay, which the way they look in the Sefer Torah, that's fine. But in a certain sense, while you're imagining this, the name of God, and imagining it big, you're also that name of God is getting in the way of the rest of the world. So your imagination is on the name of God, but you're not seeing the rest of the world. Okay? If you imagine them as kind of transparent, you can see their borders, so to speak, but imagine that you can see through them as well, so that they're embracing all of reality, which they do, as he will explain. And he'll go into this later. The next time we'll be going through that. If you imagine them transparent and embracing all of reality, so you can see the world through them, but also sense that this name of God is embracing the world. It's the structure of the world, as Yitzchak will explain later in the text. I think it's helpful in terms of really getting what this meditation is about. So you can try it in any way that works. Be a little playful. We're going to start with God's name kind of as small, so you can see all the letters, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, and then keep stretching them. Okay, that's the point. And then at the same time, as you're playing with that, try to reach with your heart for God the infinite, to appreciate God has given us our being absolutely, infinitely, and have a sense that we are floating in that sense. We're buoyantly floating in God the infinite. Okay, that's the meditation. Now, let me just, one more before we actually do this, one more point. Some of us have vivid visual imagination, that's great. Some of us have vivid auditory imagination. And some of us have visual imagination, but not such clear auditory imagination. Some of us have very clear auditory imagination, not so strong visual imagination. And there are actually a whole range of other types of imagination. For those of us that have more of an auditory rather than a visual meditation and find imagining a picture of something in your mind very difficult, but you can remember music, songs, anything that's auditory or verbal very easily. So this meditation can be done in an auditory way, which is instead of imagining the letters of the divine name, hear the letters. Have a sense that they're being spoken. You can even speak them in your mind. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. And when you speak them in your mind, have a sense as if these letters are being called out at every moment by God, which in fact is happening. That God is calling God's name at all times. Now, God is calling God's name and it's pronounced in a unique pronunciation, which we are not at this time in Jewish history permitted to express. But Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey will do, and that's the way this meditation is done. So for those of you who want to do this in a verbal auditory way, you can say the letters out, but that what you should sense is that in saying it out, the saying embraces all of reality. The letters as they're being called out, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, are actually constituting and holding together all of reality, constructing and holding together all of reality, which they are. Okay, so that's the two different ways in which this can be done. So now we're about to do this meditation. Meir, should we take time to ask any questions on this? Because we had two groups come in. Do you want, should we, if anyone would, at this moment,
sure, if you want to ask a question, you should raise your hand.
Yeah, just raise your hand and Meir can let you in if you're unclear about some aspect, because we're about to do the meditation together. It'll be for about 10 minutes. And there'll be a chime at the beginning, a chime at the end. But if you have a question about how this is done, something is perplexing you, please ask. Take a moment. Anyone raising a hand here? You see how that's done? Everyone's clear. You can also unmute yourself if you wish. I see Rochelle Kaufman. Why the Tetragrammaton? He's going to explain that in Rav Yitzchak of Akka will explain that in 2 paragraphs from now. We're going to get to that next time. I think we may get a little bit to it tonight. We'll see. He'll explain that the Tetragrammaton, the Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey name of God, is the name that is the basis for all of creation and the continued guidance of creation by God. So it's also considered the most holy and most personal name of God, so to speak. So you could do a meditation on other names of God, but this is the core name. It's called Shem HaMyuchad, Shem HaMeforash, the unique or the explicit name of God. And that's why it has special status in our tradition. And we're permitted to use this in this meditation. Someone else is asking a question. I don't know who that is. It's not a name there. But they want to put up the question again? So, do you recommend to start I only get, who is that? Someone just unmute yourself and ask the question. It says from Efrat Therapy 24/7. Cannot unmute. Meir, can you unmute everyone for a moment?
Here, I found it.
There you go. Hi.
So,
Who's this?
Efrat.
Hi, Efrat.
Hi. So when I'm imagining it, should I try to do Yud and try to expand it, then Vav and expand it? or try to keep all the letters together?
Okay, important question. Try to keep all the letters together. If you're having trouble with that, you can go one by one, but the real way that this meditation is done is imagine the name small at first, and then try to keep expanding all the letters at once, as far as you can. Just do the best you can. Don't be too literal about it, but have a sense that God's name that you're expanding here is embracing, supporting, embracing, constructing all of reality. Okay, so try to do all the letters at once. Okay, Efrat? You got that?
Thank you.
Great. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so I think we're ready to start this. Okay, so we can mute it. Everyone is muted now, except for myself. So this meditation will run for about 10 minutes. Okay. I suggest that at the beginning, everyone just let your mind quiet down. For those of us that had some previous meditation together with Livnot or in other formats, practice hashkata, quieting the mind. If you have another practice for quieting your mind in some way, just to get your thinking mind to quiet down, just use that. We'll give ourselves about 3 minutes of quieting the mind. First of all, start with this. We'll start the meditation with this sound, the chime. After about 3 minutes or so, you'll hear another chime. Okay. And that'll be a signal to begin this meditation. You've quieted your mind as best you can. Begin the meditation itself will help you quiet your mind, so don't worry too much about it. And start with getting the name of God expanded as much as possible. Work on it a bit, and then engage your heart. Okay, I'll at some point in the meditation probably say engage your heart in order to remind you to do that. But don't just do this as an imagination meditation, but really try to engage your heart with God, God's self, God, the infinite. Have a sense that you're receiving your being absolutely, infinitely here. And that's based in the fact that God, the infinite, is giving it to us. That hakarat tov, that sense of gratefulness, should help you connect with God, God's self. And so together we have this sense of God embracing the world, us connected with God, and try to be in that state of mind in which you feel God's presence and feel yourself embraced in God's presence, surrounded by God's presence. And it's when you get it, it's a beautiful feeling. Okay, so here we go. At the very end of the meditation, you'll also hear this chime. That'll be a signal. So you'll hear it at the beginning. You'll hear it about 3 to 5 minutes in. Hear it at the beginning. 3 to 5 minutes in, you'll hear it. That'll be at the end of the period of quieting your mind. It'll be a signal to begin the imagination and the heart connection. And after about 10 minutes, you'll hear this sound again, which is a signal to open your eyes, and the meditation is over. Okay, and this is done with our eyes closed. Okay, B'hatzlacha, everyone. Be'ezrat Hashem, here we go. engage your heart as well. God's name in our imagination and our heart connected with God the Infinite, Ein Sof. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. This meditation in which we're imagining God's name, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. As Rabbi Yitzchak Avako will go on to say, essentially in Kabbalah, all of reality is God's name. That's how the Kabbalists understand it. God is expressing God's name in all of reality. And this meditation is a way of perceiving that, of appreciating that, of apprehending it.